Hello, my friends. Today we are going to change the way that you view the actualization of your potential and the creation of success. So my big claim here is that culturally we are basically fed a way of thinking about these things, self-actualization and success, that is inherently confusing and inherently wrong. It sets us up to be on a path of difficulty, to be on a path of basically constant struggle. And worse than that also, in addition to the struggle, is the confusion and the fogginess and the unclarity and the sense of being disconnected from what we're here to do in this lifetime. So my big claim today is that with a little shift in our perspective, we can actually come at it from an entirely new way, one that is much more intuitive, much better feeling, one that sets us up for a lot more ease and flow, and sets us up for a lot more clarity. So we can just be clear about what we're doing and we can know what we're doing, and the whole thing just is understandable and makes sense. So that's what we're going to do. So if we never met before, my name is Brent. I'm a coach. I work with people one-on-one to help them out of chaos and into order, to help them out of stagnation and into flow, and out of powerlessness and into empowerment. So if that appeals to you, then you should definitely check out my one-on-one work that's available in the description below. You'll see a link there, and I will take care of you from there. So let's get into it. Here is my central thesis. It goes as follows. Self-actualization, success, and wellness are the products of a well-integrated system. They are the emergent products of a well-integrated system, as opposed to something that is pursued in a linear way, from past into future, from start to finish, from here to there. It's an emergent property. So what do I mean by these things? So let's begin with the definition of integrated system. An integrated system is a system that has two things going on simultaneously. The first one is that the parts themselves are good quality functional parts. And then the second property is that these good quality functional parts are brought together and work together in a harmonious way. So I'll explain exactly what I mean. We're just starting with the terms, but I'm going to give tons of examples, so don't worry. You're going to come away with this with a total understanding of what I'm talking about. Imagine, for example, a car. A car has these two things. A car has, on one hand, a bunch of good quality products. So, think of all the nuts and bolts and pistons and tires and everything that goes into a car. But it's not just a heap of those parts thrown into a corner somewhere. Those parts are assembled into a car, and they function as a car. And indeed, that's what makes it a car, because remember, a car is kind of a mysterious thing. It's an emergent property. If we have a heap of car parts, that's not a car. But if we assemble it, then it does become a car. It's still the same parts, but it functions as a car. Isn't that a strange thing? If you take away one part, let's just say if you remove one of the dashboard lights, or even if you remove one tire, maybe it doesn't function so well, but does it stop being a car? No, not necessarily. It's sort of a strange thing. It's very vague and murky. But nevertheless, it is still real. The car is a real thing that does emerge. What we need to also understand is what distortions are. Distortions are anywhere there is friction in the system that does not allow the system to operate well. So one example might be if there's an electrical circuit and say somewhere along the line, one of the wires is faulty and there's resistance and some of the electricity is lost to heat. That is a taxation on the system. It's a taxation on the resource. There is loss. And the circuit does not function as well as it otherwise could. And that which the circuit is trying to do, say keep the lights on or keep the heat on, it can't do its job as well. That functional emergent property cannot arise. And the other parts of the system have to overcompensate in order for that emergent property to still emerge. Another example might be in a business setting. Let's say we have a handful of staff. Let's say we have 10 staff and they all have to perform different functions in the company. And let's say there's one member of staff that's not doing their job very well, very efficiently. That becomes a taxation on the whole system. It means that the success that the business is trying to create will be less forthcoming, and it will mean that the other staff have to overcompensate in sort of a lopsided way to make up for this one staff member that's not doing their work. And in that overcompensation, the success still is like, it's not, the other staff are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. In their overcompensation, it takes away their ability to do their own original work. And so that overcompensation helps, but doesn't get us all the way there. It doesn't work as well as it would if there were a well-functioning staff member there in the first place. So that's distortion. Distortion is anywhere there's friction, anywhere there's loss, anywhere that emergent property cannot emerge. So the old school way of viewing success is we learn it from, say, business teachers, from certain thought leaders that say, hey, like I made success on my own, just replicate what I did. Do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and then you will end up with what I ended up. And some people do those steps and replicate the success. But I would argue the majority of the time, people who attempt to recreate somebody else's path of success fail to create the same results. And it's not because they're not doing the steps skillfully enough. It's not because they're not trying hard enough or that their intention isn't sincere enough, but there's too much distortion in their own system for success to emerge, because the problem is not on the level of the recipe or the step-by-step that they're following. The problem is that the system does not allow success to emerge. And so therefore, we want to turn our attention away from some sort of linear path into success and instead focus on removing distortions from our system and getting everything up and functional. My other claim, sort of a secondary claim in here, is that when you view it this way, it frames success in the actualization of your potential as something that is natural, as something that is, quote unquote, supposed to happen, something that should happen, something that is trying to happen on its own as long as the ideal conditions are put in place. It's something that we want to nurture and foster as opposed to force and work our way at. What's also nice about this take is that it's not future oriented. It puts us firmly in the now. Whenever we view success as something in the future, the actualization of our potential as something that we'll get there one day, that sense of one day or someday or I hope or eventually or down the road, whenever we use these types of terms, we're not referring to anything real. We're referring to our imagination. We're taking the otherwise very real success and putting it into some imaginary territory called the future, which never comes. And I will remind you, the future never arrives. I mean, Tuesday will arrive and Friday will arrive and the year 2030 will come into the now moment and be experienced as the now. But in this present moment, unless you're watching it in 2030 is just an idea. And the future itself, in particular as an idea, is designed to never arrive in the now. Just look at that on its face in almost a semantic way. It's like the future can never be now. It can never be here. And in that sense, the future can only ever exist as a concept. So when you take your own success and put it in the future, you're putting it somewhere that it can never be experienced as the now. And so what makes this shift that we're discussing so radical is that we are putting success in the now and the creation of wellness, the accomplishment of your personal wellness as something that's happening now. So that's pretty good. So here are a handful of common distortions. These are psychological distortions that prevent success from coming in no particular order. I just have a list that I'm going to read up here. One is uncharitable interpretation. So if you view yourself, say, as a failure, as a disappointment, as a reject, if you view yourself as wrong, doing something wrong, and you just look at yourself in a very pejorative or unlikable light, then what you're doing is you're introducing friction into the system, because you are making your own self into something that is pitiful or wrong or shameful, and that represents you turning on yourself, and that's the creation of friction. You are dividing yourself in half and creating conflict between the halves. Another one is mimicking. Where are you mimicking other people? So when I was a youngster, I found and really got into dating theory and pickup artistry. If you remember The Game and Mystery and all these people back in the early 2010s, say, in late 2000s, there was a big pop culture movement around pickup artistry, and I really, really liked it. And whenever I tried to use any of the techniques towards getting women to like me, they were failures. I was much more successful before coming into this material in the dating world, but it was just so compelling that I figured, oh, like it'll be even better if I try it out, but no, everything got worse. And that's because I was trying to mimic somebody else instead of going through my own authentic way of approaching dating. Another common distortion is turning on the self, which is what we discussed above, but also includes just being mad at yourself. Like when you're mad at yourself, or you go, oh, God damn it, and you call yourself names and you're really hard on yourself. Another one is also when you contract physically. So like I've been playing a lot of chess lately, and if I make a wrong move, and after I move it, I go, oh, that was a stupid move. There's a sense of physical contraction. And that tends to prevent success from emerging. Split psyche modes. What did I mean by this? Oh, yes, I know what I meant. So another cognitive distortion, split psyche. So I've spoken a lot in other videos about how I was able to quit smoking cigarettes. And what maintained the addiction, what held my addiction to smoking in place, this may or may not apply to you, was going back and forth between two different types of person. Like if you're familiar with the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it's like one individual being like both things. And like on Friday nights, I'd be like, ooh, let's party, let's get drunk and smoke. And then on Monday morning, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so angry at myself for smoking. And I would be two different versions of myself that would never meet. So that is a cognitive distortion that prevents success or wellness from emerging. Reactivity is a huge one. So reactivity is when if somebody does something, either like a person you know personally or somebody out there, like politicians, they do things that upset you, and now you are in reaction against what they did. You are upset because of what other people are doing. This puts you in a disempowered place, makes you disconnected to your core, and so that's another cognitive distortion. Complication, just overcomplicating everything. And then finally, just being out of touch with unconditional wellness, like just not finding unconditional wellness in yourself is a cognitive distortion that prevents your wellness from emerging. These are all things, so if any of these speak to you, these are things that you would want to remove from your psychology. And I'll share with you a few ways that you can do that. You want to remove them from your psychology so that wellness can flood in, and so that success can be created in yourself. So there's one, even though there are a handful of smaller techniques that you can use, all of the techniques they follow one particular path. They operate in one particular way that I will describe for you presently. So this is how you overcome distortions. The very, very first and most important thing, the most important thing that you need to know about overcoming a cognitive distortion, to resist or fight a cognitive distortion, is to fight against your own psychology. And whenever you attempt to fight against your own psychology, you will surely lose, because you are once again dividing yourself in half and making one aspect of you against the other half, which is a recipe for frustration and failure. When there's a cognitive distortion, the idea is for your automatic reaction to be to slow down and to adopt a witnessing stance toward it. You want to go, oh, cool, there's a cognitive distortion. Let's have a look. You just observe, and you arrive at a place of stillness as you look at the distortion. So an example would be, let's just say you find yourself being a little mean to yourself. You're being harsh on yourself, and by grace you have a sense of like, okay, wow, I'm being like probably more harsh toward myself than I really should be. So you're having this moment of self-awareness. The wrong way of going about this would be to look at that harshness and go, God damn it, I shouldn't be harsh. I need to be nice to myself. Because as you can probably see, this creates not wellness, but a secondary layer of unwellness, because you're bringing that same harshness to yourself, but on a new level, and actually creating more of a complex around it than there originally was. This is one of the great perversions of mystical thinking, of mystical awareness. When we learn and start to move along the path of self-love, we're attempting to come out of harshness, but we take even the path of self-love and turn it into a new form of harshness that we wield against ourselves. And this makes things worse, not better. You would have been better off not learning about the path of self-love to begin with. So of course, by contrast, what you want to do instead is, if you observe harshness in yourself, if you are unable to stop in that moment being harsh and mean to yourself, you just bring witnessing attention to it and let it happen. You just allow it. You go, okay, there's some harshness. Okay. And then after a brief moment of stillness, what you can do is say, 1, 2, 3, release. 1, 2, 3, release. Now, what are we releasing? Are we releasing the harshness, the harsh behavior? Not exactly. We are not releasing one part of you. What we are releasing is the conflict itself. We are releasing the sense of division that you have between the two aspects of you. So you look at the conflict and you just say, 1, 2, 3, release. 1, 2, 3, release. And allow the whole thing to collapse in front of your vision. You're not in a hurry. It collapses on its own. As we've learned from the speaker Yeshwani, and I spoke about this in great length in an earlier video called The Spiral of Collapse, that which does not serve us, that which is false, collapses out of the system once it's seen to be false. So we just allow this cognitive distortion to collapse out of the system. We let the distortion dissolve in awareness. You will notice its completion. You will feel it physically, or you may witness it in your imagination as something getting smaller and smaller and fading away. And that's how you know it'll work, or that's how you'll know it has worked. And then finally, what you want to do is observe the effect it has on the original problem. So what was it in your life that caused that cognitive distortion to flare up? So in our example, it was you being mad at yourself. Like, why were you mad at yourself originally? Were you messing something up? Were you like spilling your milk and, constantly making a mess? Well, you may find, and we're going to observe that you're not spilling your milk so much anymore, because the emotional charge around it and the distortion around it has finally dissolved. And so now there's no further need for that to materialize in your life. So this is exciting stuff, because it means that wellness is permitted to emerge by releasing all of the cognitive distortions. But not only that, the system itself becomes so harmonious that you enter into deeper and more profound levels of flow, of creative flow with your life. Just imagine your life becoming incredibly lubricated, let's say. There's more flow and more communication between the different aspects. There are new levels of success that may emerge that may not even have occurred to you yet. So there are different aspects of our life. So in mine, for example, we have parenting, working, reading, creating, client work. I'm studying a psychology degree to become a therapist. And these different aspects of my life are not separate. How I do one is how I do the rest. Success in one bleeds over into the success of the other. But even that's not quite accurate. What's more accurate is that there's something at the very center underneath all of those aspects. And when I can imagine that one central thing, then the distortions that I remove from that central thing bleed outward into these manifestations, these different aspects of my life and how I go about them. An example might be that in my reading, I'm learning more about Ken Wilber's integral theory. And this shows up in my work on my psychology degree, but it also shows up in how I parent my child. And it also affects how I operate my relationship, how I operate as a husband in my relationship, we would say. In the last few months or so, my wife and I have had a profound series of discussions where we've been able to remove lots of old, long-standing friction that has stood between the two of us in the structure of our relationship. We've been together for 17 years now as of this upcoming April. And so you can imagine that there's stuff that tends to get buried in there over time that just creates friction, unwellness. And so we've brought these up. It was painful as we brought them up, but then we cleared them. And now there's a much deeper, fresher love that has emerged between us. And that, of course, is having an amazing effect on my work in my business life, because there's so much more support and understanding in my marriage. It gives me the space that I need to take bigger risks and think more long-term in my business. So that's how these things, so there are tons of examples of how the different aspects speak to each other. And so just imagine then how removing all of the little distortions, like all the speed bumps, what comes as a result? What car emerges when all these pieces are brought together and they function harmoniously? Well, this is the actualization of your potential, that which you see in your imagination becoming real. So focus, my friend, on removing distortions, letting the parts come together, letting them sync up, and then seeing what happens. Focus on this shepherding, guiding effect, as opposed to that linear effort. Like, you can see now how little this is about effort and trying and grind. Now, to be fair, part of the creation of success means having lots of important systems in place. For example, in my business, there's this, I'm now doing weekly videos. Before, these videos used to be sporadic, and now they're coming out every Friday, and I'm aiming for them to be 20 minutes, hopefully, every week. And I do a TikTok every single day. And that, of course, has brought up a lot of distortions that I have around recording, which I'm still working through and getting better with those. And then as that friction is removed, I'm able to bring in deeper content, more authentic content to the world, which of course I expect to have a positive effect on my business growth. And so on we go from there. Why did I bring this up? Oh yeah, that it's just not about pushing forward. It's not about overcoming adversity, you see. It's about removing the adversity and having everything hum like a well-oiled machine. So hopefully that makes that clear. And I hope you see how amazing and how exciting this idea is, and really how radical it is. It's such a radical idea. So use it. Let me know how it works for you. Let me know if you have any questions about it. And again, please like the video and become a subscriber. It would really mean a lot to me. Thank you.